Picture this. You're a grandparent, ready to enjoy your golden years, when suddenly you find yourself raising your grandchildren full-time. It's not just you. This situation is becoming more common every day. In fact, over 2 million grandparents in the United States are now the main caregivers for their grandkids. These grandparents have stepped up to the plate, often due to difficult family circumstances that prevent the children's parents from fulfilling their roles. It's a challenging journey for these grandparents, who face numerous obstacles as they take on this unexpected responsibility later in life. In this video, we're going to take a close look at some of the biggest issues these grandparent caregivers face. We'll discuss legal issues, social challenges, and emotional struggles they face. Understanding these difficulties is crucial for everyone, as it allows us to better support and appreciate these special families who are making such important sacrifices for their grandchildren. Check out the full details by visiting the link in the description. Number 1. Custody and guardianship issues. Obtaining legal custody or guardianship of grandchildren can be a complex and frustrating process for grandparents. It often involves lengthy court battles and unclear legal rights. The U.S. Government Accountability Office, GAO, has pointed out a significant issue. Many grandparents caring for grandchildren lack legal custody. This gap in legal status creates numerous problems, as it limits grandparents' ability to make important decisions on behalf of the children in their care. Without official custody or guardianship, grandparents may struggle with everything from school enrollment to medical care decisions, leaving them in a precarious position as they try to provide the best possible care for their grandchildren. Number 2. Navigating family law courts. The journey through family law courts can be daunting for grandparents seeking legal rights for their grandchildren. The process is often complicated and can place a significant financial burden on older adults who may be living on fixed incomes. Many grandparents find themselves struggling to afford legal representation, which can lead to prolonged court cases and increased stress. The legal system can be overwhelming, with its specific procedures and jargon, making it difficult for grandparents to advocate effectively for themselves and their grandchildren. This challenge is particularly acute for those who have never had to deal with the court system before, adding another layer of difficulty to an already stressful situation. Number 3. Parental rights termination. One of the most emotionally challenging legal hurdles for grandparents is the process of terminating the parental rights of their own children. This step is often necessary for grandparents to gain full custody, but it comes with significant emotional and legal challenges. According to the American Bar Association, this process can be lengthy and emotionally taxing, often taking several years to complete. Grandparents may find themselves torn between their love for their own children and the need to provide stability for their grandchildren. This situation can create deep family rifts and long-lasting emotional scars, even as it aims to secure a better future for the grandchildren involved. Number 4. Access to social services and benefits. Grandparents raising grandchildren often face significant obstacles when trying to access government benefits such as Social Security, healthcare, or child welfare services. These programs typically require legal guardianship documentation, which many grandparents may not have. The Advisory Council to Support Grandparents Raising Grandchildren has highlighted that grandparents without legal guardianship often struggle to access essential benefits like Medicaid and temporary assistance for needy families, TANF, for their grandchildren. This lack of access can lead to financial distress for many families, as grandparents try to provide for their grandchildren's needs without the support systems typically available to parents. Number 5 on our list of legal and social battles for grandparents raising their grandchildren that you need to know is inheritance and estate planning. For grandparents raising grandchildren, planning for the future becomes even more complex. They must deal with intricate inheritance laws to ensure their grandchildren are provided for in case something happens to them. This process often involves updating wills, setting up living trusts, and making other legal arrangements to protect their grandchildren's interests. Estate planning in these situations requires careful consideration of various scenarios and may necessitate the help of legal professionals. Grandparents must think about not only their own legacy, but also how to secure their grandchildren's financial future, which can be a stressful and emotional process. Number 6. Educational rights and school enrollment. Enrolling grandchildren in school and making educational decisions can present significant challenges for grandparents who lack formal legal custody. Schools often require official guardianship papers before allowing grandparents to make important choices about a child's education. This requirement can create barriers to accessing appropriate educational services and support for the grandchildren. Grandparents may find themselves unable to sign permission slips, attend parent-teacher conferences, or make decisions about special education services. This situation can leave grandchildren in educational limbo, potentially affecting their academic progress and overall well-being. Number 7. Medical consent and healthcare decisions. Making healthcare decisions for grandchildren becomes a major challenge for grandparents without legal authority. They may encounter roadblocks when trying to obtain medical care or make crucial health choices for the children in their care. Healthcare providers often require legal guardianship documentation before allowing non-parents to consent to medical procedures or access health records. This can lead to delays in necessary medical treatments and create stressful situations for grandparents trying to ensure their grandchildren receive proper health care. In emergency situations, this lack of legal authority can be particularly problematic, leaving grandparents feeling helpless and frustrated. Before we continue with the video, take a quick moment to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't yet. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Plus, we've got some helpful resources in the description. Check them out and share your comments after you're done watching. Number 8. Stigma and societal perceptions. Grandparents raising grandchildren often face unfair judgment and stigma in society. Many people assume they're too old to be effective parents or view them as second-best caregivers. This negative perception can be incredibly hurtful and isolating for grandparents who have taken on this important role. Recent research shows that many grandparents experience shame linked to this stigma. They may encounter subtle, hurtful comments or actions, known as microaggressions, that make them feel like they've failed as parents. These experiences can chip away at their confidence and make an already challenging situation even more difficult to navigate. Number 9. Isolation from peer groups. Taking on the role of primary caregiver can lead to significant social isolation for grandparents. While their friends might be enjoying retirement, traveling, or pursuing hobbies, these grandparents find themselves busy with school runs, homework help, and childcare duties. This stark difference in lifestyle can create a disconnect between grandparents and their peers. The lack of shared experiences can make it hard to maintain friendships and social connections. As a result, many grandparents raising grandchildren feel lonely and cut off from their usual support networks, which can increase stress and impact their overall well-being. Number 10 on our list of legal and social battles for grandparents raising their grandchildren that you need to know is intergenerational gaps. The generation gap between grandparents and the grandchildren they're raising can create unique challenges. Grandparents might struggle to understand and adapt to modern parenting styles, new technologies, and current cultural norms. This disconnect can lead to misunderstandings and conflicts within the family. Recent studies have shown that many grandparents feel out of touch with the values and communication styles of younger generations. These differences can make it difficult for grandparents to relate to their grandchildren's experiences and needs, potentially straining their relationships and making effective parenting more challenging. Number 11. Balancing work, retirement, and caregiving. Many grandparents find themselves in a tough spot, juggling work responsibilities or delaying retirement to care for their grandchildren. This situation can put significant strain on their finances and emotional well-being, especially if they're living on a fixed income. The U.S. Census Bureau's American Community Survey reveals that nearly 7 million grandparents are financially responsible for the grandchildren living with them, regardless of their employment status. This added financial burden can force grandparents to make difficult choices between their own needs and those of their grandchildren, often sacrificing their retirement plans or personal goals in the process. Number 12. Impact on mental health. The stress of raising grandchildren can take a serious toll on grandparents' mental health. Many experience depression or anxiety due to the pressures of caregiving and the dramatic life change they've undergone. The constant demands of childcare, combined with financial worries and legal battles, can be overwhelming. Unfortunately, there's often a lack of appropriate mental health resources tailored to the unique needs of grandparents in this situation. This gap in support can leave grandparents feeling unsupported and struggling to cope with the emotional challenges they face, potentially impacting their ability to provide the best care for their grandchildren. Number 13. Grief and loss. Many grandparents who find themselves raising their grandchildren are also dealing with profound grief and loss. They may be mourning the loss of their own children, the parents of the grandchildren, due to death, addiction, or other serious issues. This grief process is complicated by the need to step into a parenting role for their grandchildren. Grandparents must balance their own emotional pain with the responsibility of providing stability and care for young ones who may also be struggling with loss. This dual role of grieving and caregiving can be emotionally exhausting, requiring tremendous strength and resilience. Number 14. Strained family relationships. When grandparents take on the role of primary caregivers, it can create tension and strain family relationships. The situation might lead to conflicts with their own children, the parents of the grandchildren, other family members, or even between grandparents themselves if they're co-parenting. These family dynamics can become complicated and emotionally charged, especially if there are disagreements about the care and upbringing of the grandchildren. The stress of these strained relationships can add another layer of emotional burden for grandparents, who may feel caught between their love for their children and their commitment to their grandchildren's well-being. Number 15th on our list of legal and social battles for grandparents raising their grandchild that you need to know is identity and role confusion. Grandparents often struggle with their sense of identity when they become primary caregivers for their grandchildren. They're used to being in the traditional grandparent role, offering love, fun, and occasional support. Suddenly, they find themselves thrust into the position of full-time parent, responsible for discipline, education, and daily care. This shift can be disorienting and lead to feelings of role confusion. Grandparents may grapple with questions about their place in the family and how to balance their new responsibilities with their own needs and desires. This internal conflict can be emotionally draining and may require a significant adjustment in how they view themselves and their role in the family. Raising grandchildren is a monumental task with unique challenges. Despite legal, social, and emotional hurdles, grandparents take on this role out of love and the desire to provide a stable home. If you know someone in this situation, reaching out with support can make a world of difference. A little understanding goes a long way. For grandparents raising grandchildren, remember you're not alone. Resources and support groups exist to help you through this journey. Though the path isn't easy, with the right support, grandparents can create stable, loving homes for their grandchildren. Let's acknowledge their vital role and work together to make their journey easier. Thanks for watching, and if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Also, don't forget the link in the description